Hello, and welcome to the Mastering the Hustle interview series. I'm your host, Joel Calkins, and today I'm joined by Dan Rogers, who is the CEO and founder of Work P2P. Dan, thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to start us off with just telling us a little bit about yourself and what it is you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Joel. My name is Dan Rogers, and as you mentioned, I'm the CEO of Work P2P. And pre-COVID, Work P2P was P2P, and because of COVID, we became Work P2P, which, if we want to just speak in English, which will probably be the last time I speak in English today, uh, um, we're sort of like a non-traditional, full-fledged agency. That's what we do.
Right on. And so you started this a little over 22 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. What got you into the game? Why did you want to start your own business?
Well, I was never really smart enough to get out of the business, is what happened. So I started as a truck driver,
Okay.
as a guy that worked in the warehouse and on the trucks. And then I did a brief stint in restaurants where I opened a bunch of fast food restaurants. And then I got back, the folks that I used to work for got me back as a salesperson. And then eventually I bought that company 22 or so years ago. And then we started morphing it from that. So I was just never smart enough to get out of it, is really how I got into it. Yeah.
Right on. That's great. So for the people that don't really know what Work P2P is or what it is you do, can you give them just a brief explanation of the services that you provide?
Yeah. And again, I'll tell a little bit of history just because I think it helps frame it
Please.
up a little bit. So pre-COVID, we were a event shipping company. So we did about 10,000 events on 5 continents. And I say shipping because that's mostly what we did, but we coordinated labor and, to keep it simple, sort of the get your fingernails dirty of corporate events. There's a sort of the front of the house where all the talent and all the beautiful people are, and then there's the back of the house with the dirty fingernails. And so we were sort of on the back of the house. During COVID, when everything went virtual, we started helping folks just in any way that we could. And we found out that webinars, virtual events, look a lot like physical events. And so coming out of COVID, through what happened during COVID, we now just do end to end. We help people vision events all the way, whether an event to us is a webinar, it's a face-to-face event, it's a podcast, it's a training series, it's whatever it is. It can be just a good old-fashioned corporate event like what we know and love, but it's just sort of an event, literally just an event, an occurrence. And so we can help you with any part of an occurrence. I mean, we can't do everything, but if it's sort of in our scope of expertise, we're looking to help folks with their occurrences, with their events. Yeah.
Nice. So in that time when you started from shipping, like event shipping, into what you do now, what it sounds like you've done is made a series of adjacency moves to kind of build out the ecosystem or the end-to-end value stream. Why did you take that tactic? How does that work for you?
So I have a personality where I'm intellectually obsessed with getting closer to right, literally. And so earlier in my career, all of us misdiagnosed me as a sales guy because I can get fairly pushy when I'm intellectually obsessed with the best answer. But I'm a systems guy at heart. I mean, everything I do is unbelievably systematic. And so I think distribution is everything is a system, right? And so we got very, very good at designing those based on systems law, not based on distribution, but based on system dynamics. And so whether you're pushing an idea or electricity or physical mass, it's design. And so it turns out that we call it the sidekick process. We have a 9 activity, the sidekick process has 9 separate activities to it that'll take anything down. It'll move electricity through space, and it'll move physical mass through space. Yeah, that's really what it is. We just extended what we did, moving things in the physical to the more abstract. So I've been solving the same riddle since I was driving the truck or delivering newspapers as a kid. We just keep making it more and more abstract.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you provide for me an example of that? Because I love the idea of systems thinking. I think it's extremely important both in life and in business.
Yeah.
Give me an example of how you applied that to either entering a new market or solving a unique problem.
So we were on the Inc. 5000 for 7 years in a row going into COVID, and we don't do any sales and marketing. I tried hiring salespeople. We had two salespeople, I think in like 2005 for about 6 months. But we don't do any sales and marketing. When you take a systems approach and design yourself into the system comes to you.
Okay.
And so, respectfully, traditional marketing is push, whether it's permission or not, it's push. Sales, the way most people do it, is push. What we did is we tried to, and we didn't do it perfectly, and we've been iterating on it for the better part of 20 years, so we're pretty slow learners, to be clear. But we're trying to design a pull system so we are part of the system. And I don't want to be graphic, but in trying to explain this to other people, this is one that people have really gotten. The bathroom doesn't advertise. The toilet itself doesn't advertise, right? So when you're that good, when you actually just really obsessively focus on awesome, the marketplace comes to you. It really, truly does. And people say they do that, but they're actually more concerned with scale than awesome. I am obsessed with closer to right, and scale is a byproduct of awesome. It's not the outcome, it's a byproduct. So that's an example of like what systems thinking looks like. And I've been obsessed with that since I was moving furniture, literally since I was moving furniture. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's the brain I was born with. I couldn't escape it. Yeah. Yeah.
That's great. It's like that old adage that, a good product doesn't need marketing because it has such a tight fit. So how do you know is you're pursuing awesome? Because I think that's really important for everybody to understand. By awesome, I assume you mean that you've got the right product market fit. You know what people
it's
want,
even
what
way
they
more
need.
Okay,
so build on that.
I don't want to cut you off, but so most people are trying to figure out what to do. I think that's mathematically impossible. Much smarter guys, much smarter women, much smarter people have proven, even with all the incredible technology we have now, and we can't, it's impossible. But what is quite easy to figure out is what not to do. So we actually have 9 restraints that we run an idea through. And if it survives that, it might not be a good idea, but at least it's not confronting the way that reality appears to work. And so when you obsess over that actually aligns you. It sounds metaphysical or whatever it is, a little bit like it aligns you much better to reality, which it turns out if you don't try to push a false narrative in reality, and so you try to pull in as much reality as you can, reality just takes care of you better. It just does. So when I talk about like the principles that we operate on, what ends up happening frequently is a person, like any individual contributor who can genuinely brag about how they're successful, does what we're talking about. That's how it works. What happens is when we get together in a group and we call ourselves a corporation, we start off with a flawed design based on flawed ways that it's run, and then we factor that out. So like a really wild, successful salesperson invariably does sort of like what we're talking about, but their boss would fire them if they continue to do that if their numbers weren't good. And I designed a system that just does that, and no one in any of my companies has any revenue responsibility, no expense responsibility, no profitability expense. We don't do any of that stuff. We're just focused on awesome. And our entire Western culture is based on it. I'm swimming in the success of our predecessors, so I'm not trying to throw shade on it. But this thinking is 200 years old, and I'm just Monday morning quarterback a 200-year-old decision about the design that we're living in, and it's everywhere. It's the way all our organizations are based on this incredibly great that got us here, but old 200-year-old design. I'm just pointing out it's a little flawed. And if you try a different design, you get a wildly different result. And you can say that you can put square wheels on a car and call them round, but they're square, right? And we're just pointing out, hey, round tires are better than square tires. Square tires were as good as we had, but round tires might work better. And it's that crazy when you start looking at it, because folks are literally trying to optimize parts. And what I'm trying to do is design the biggest system I can, and my company fits inside of that system. And I obviously can't control it, but I'm designing it at that level, 2 or 3 levels of magnitude scale above what we have control over. That's how you design your, how you design the bathroom into the system.
There you go.
Instead of how do I just design my little circle? And then and then being obsessed with inside my little circle.
Oh,
I don't
I
know if
love
that's
that.
making any sense, Joel.
No, it does. It does. It reminds me of W. Edwards Deming. I don't know if you've ever read his work.
Who's that?
W. Edwards Deming.
Oh yeah, no, him and Akoff are mentors. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
There you go. There
Yeah,
you go. I'm
oh,
like, yeah, totally
yeah,
get
yeah,
it. I love
yeah.
it.
Yeah, no,
So
this all yeah, and then you get into Jay Forrester, and those are three guys that just knocked out, and no one listened to him. They
man,
told us how all this stuff worked, and no one listened to him. Deming
okay.
talked to everybody. Akoff talked to like well over 200 corporations, and they didn't listen to him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, the story of Deming and what he did in Japan and how like
yeah,
the big three
yeah.
just didn't pay any attention. And
So you'll get this then. All right, and
yeah,
again, I want to I'm speaking really more from a mathematical position. I'm not speaking from a moral position. I'm not speaking from an
sure.
ethical position. I'm speaking from a mathematical perspective. Um, a corporation is a false statement. It's a lie. It has a biological design, and yet it is a societal system. And
Mhm.
if you know Deming, you know Akoff, Forrester, they'll talk about the four basic levels of systems. So you start off with mechanistic,
Mhm.
biological, societal, and then ecological on the top.
Mhm.
And the reason why we have such, I think it's above my pay grade clearly, but the best I can put my little head around it is I think why we have the results that we have being so wildly different is we've been attempting to design our business as a societal system. I mean, we still operate. I mean, we are legally a corporation and all that, but how
Yeah.
we have designed it, how I run it, the way our policies, all that stuff are much closer to societal. And that's
Mhm.
actually just a more accurate statement because of God, we support some of the most successful corporations that have ever graced the earth. They're wonderful, but realistically, they're not, there is, the head of the company is that's not what's happening.
Yeah.
Microsoft, Apple are not single entities. They are
Mhm.
societal. I mean, they're in ecological systems all by themselves,
Yeah.
right? That's why we have wildly different results. I think why we can have wildly different results is that it literally is design, and at some point, design actually really matters. Yeah, it
Yeah.
really
Wow.
matters.
No, that's fascinating. So you mentioned, I want to go back to the nine constraints.
Yeah.
Constraints or restraints? What did you say? What was it?
So I have a cognitive inventory management system, how I try to organize the content of
Okay.
my mind. And so constraints are imposed by the universe. The
Yep.
laws of the universe are constraints. Restraints are self-imposed constraints.
Yep. Nice.
So I study as best I can a constraint, and then through knowledge and strategy, I devise restraints. That's what we did. Yeah. So there's a
So you take it
whole
through that you created
framework.
those nine restraints. Would you mind sharing what those are for you as you
Yeah.
think
So
about that?
so number one is don't be dishonest, own the truth as I perceive it to be. Number two is don't confuse facts and opinions. Opinions don't matter outside my own head. Number three is don't blame others. If I'm bored, I'm boring. Number four is don't take credit for grace. Work is the most honorable act in the universe. Number five is don't be arrogant. Copy off the smartest kids in class. Number six is don't be transactional. I can't calculate the infinite. Number seven is don't push. The universe is a pull system. Number eight is don't overproduce. Be intentional. That's the shortest one, on purpose. And then number nine is don't wait on perfection. Make mistakes at full speed.
Awesome. That's a
Yeah.
great. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So as you've been designing that pull system, you have no doubt grown that company, which means you've got people that you work with, people that are on your team. That probably creates a layer of complexity to your system. How have you managed that growth and that, I guess, scale, for lack of a better word, over
Not
time?
well.
Okay.
We are the beneficiaries of being able to survive our mistakes. I
Mhm.
mean, like, you know, you mentioned I've owned the business for 22 years. I was trying to do this really since 94. I've been supervising people where I could try to do this stuff since 1994. With that much time, I feel like we should be way better at what we're doing. But we really just have survived our mistakes. So, uh, since COVID, the blessing that COVID gave us, it was such a hard stop to the business. And then I spent time talking to other business owners and just, finding out that if you weren't on our payroll and you weren't completely in our ecosystem and you weren't like completely surrounded by our systems, none of this stuff made any sense. And quite frankly, even if you were inside our system, half of it didn't make sense to the employees either, right? So I mean, like that's the reality of it. But COVID allowed us a chance to try to explain it to other people and get all that feedback. And then the lights came back on for us about 22 months into it, or started to come back on. And so as we've started to build back the team, and as the consultancy business grew out, some of these other businesses grew out, I think we're doing a much better job of onboarding them. But when you ask that question, I just go back to like in between like roughly 2011 and 2014, like we hadn't learned that you should hire with the idea that not everyone's going to be perfect and that you might be more successful than you think, because for a couple of years we hired what we thought we needed, we missed, we didn't get the right people, and that's on us, not on them. And then we ended up busier than we thought. And I ran a sweatshop for probably 2.5 years, and I didn't want to, but like, I mean, and we'd have conversations on the team. I'm like, look, we can try to bring people in. What do you want to do? And so when you ask, how do we deal with it? Poorly. But we've been fortunate that we survived that. So we try to eventually get out in front of that. But no, I mean, that's why I go back to design to try to figure out how to solve that. And so this is going to sound crazy to people that like math, but I'm trying to design a system that basically runs on 64% effort, because I want that much fudge in it. Because otherwise, either I don't have any capacity, the team doesn't have any capacity to take something on that you can't possibly plan for, because that's the universe, or when life happens, you're so fragile that you fall apart. And the 64% is by design, because we tried 80, and 80 was still, I mean, we could probably could have survived it. I just don't like 80. I like 64 better, which is insane. That's insane, because everyone's like, oh my God, you're leaving 36% on the table. I'm like, no, I'm building an awesome, like, people are considerably better when they're not like completely freaked out that they're going to have to make this deadline. And that's a design issue. As the person in charge, I can design that. You can design for 100% efficiency, or you can design for 64% effectiveness. And that's what we're designing for.
Which is,
and that's again, that's an optimizing part. The publicly traded companies have fiduciary responsibility to try to drive that 100%.
Yep.
I'm a privately held company trying to run on societal design. They're 100% efficient. Mm-hmm. We're looking for 64% effective. Like, if our system, you can be really good if 64% is good enough. That's not hard. That's not nearly as hard as trying to hit 100. But you solve it through design, not through beating the stick.
Yeah. And you're optimizing the system. You're not necessarily trying to optimize a single person or a single role.
Yeah. And you've mentioned some of these people, right? Like, so I'll steal all their metaphors because they're so beautiful, right? Like, you try to optimize your heart, you kill it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't, we fundamentally understand it, but it's so ingrained to what we do. And I say we, because if I'm not careful, I do it. I mean, I don't have as good an excuse as everybody else. I got experience and a ton of trying to put it into play, but it's just baked into what we do. It's like, oh, I got to go fix that thing. It's like, maybe not. We misdiagnose a symptom, we call it a problem, and we try to fix it instead of like saying, drop it back and go, look, what is really the root cause of this, right?
Yes.
So anyways, again, guilty as charged. So I think there was the original question was, how do we deal with this? As best we can, but like, I think our overall approach is better, but it's far from perfect, we're happy with the mistakes that we are making, the way that we're approaching it. Yeah. I like making mistakes based on this, as opposed to trying to optimize parts and run 100% efficient. Those mistakes are rough. Those mistakes.
Absolutely. So you've no doubt grown in that time that you've been here with work P2P. What are some of the lessons you've learned in leadership as you've gone along, or how have you had to change as a leader as your company's grown and progressed?
Again, I think I've made just about every mistake that you can make. And there's no false humility. And if anyone listens to this podcast that I know, I just want them to be like, okay, you didn't lie. Right. So I bought the company in 2002. We were a highly specialized shipping company. We had a fantastic team. I mean, just all-stars everywhere. We were bulletproof. We were like, one of the top providers on the planet, and everybody knew what they were doing. And so then I
Mhm.
bought it and sort of lifted the restraints, because I got to a place where it's harder to sell the owner on what I wanted to do than the customers. And so I
Mm.
was like, I got to buy this thing, man. And
Yeah.
so then we grew crazy from 2002 to 2007, and I ended up hating my job. I
Mm.
loved it at $6 an hour, rolling burritos, opening up all those restaurants, literally making $6 an hour. Loved my job, hated my job, even though we had been on the Inc. 5000 at that point, I think 3 years in a row, from like 05 to 07, I think, I'm pretty sure. But I hated it. And when I hated it, I made the mistake of talking to a business coach. Uh, and she said, well, what's the vision of the company? And you might get a sense. She was a little bit more graphic than this. She's like, wait. I mean, she gave me like 45 seconds, the longest she ever let me talk. The
Yeah.
first question, longest time she let me talk. She's like, I have no idea what you said, but whatever you said is not a vision. If you don't have a vision, you can't articulate a vision. If you can't
Yeah.
articulate a vision, you certainly can't figure out what people should do. If you can't figure what people should do, you can't ask them what to do. If you can't ask them what to do, they can't do what you want. No wonder you hate your job. I'd hate working for you. And I'm like, you're hired. Right? So
Wow.
so she helped us with the vision. But like, I mean, what mistakes have I made as a leader? I like bought a company and was leading it. We didn't have a vision. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, like what? Like, I mean, it sounds insane, but we did it. So then we cleaned up the vision. We got a vision that we could rally behind. And then the problem is that the current business we had, 70% of it didn't fit into the vision. So we fired 70% of our clients. And then a global recession hit right behind that, and we lost another 7%. And I'm a math guy, so that's 91%. I didn't have to be a math guy because I lived it, but as a math guy, I can tell you that's what happens. But yeah, but with that vision, even after that, we ended up growing the business back to maybe 2.5 times what it was before we took it apart around that vision. And then, so what mistake did I make? I made every single mistake you can make from that, in terms of, like I told you before, we sort of misestimated, how well we could onboard people, and not only that, we also misestimated how well we could assess people that are good fit for our team. We also didn't do a great job of how much business we're going to add, or we didn't do a great job of restraining how much business we took. So we didn't manage that growth well. I thought that we wrote good processes and systems at one point, and the way that you test that is take it to an outsource model and see how well they can do that. We learned that we couldn't write a process on that. Like, I mean, I've sort of made every mistake that you can make at every level of growth.
Mm.
We just been fortunate that it didn't, we survived it. And the second, third, or fifth iteration of trying to come up with a better idea ended up being good enough to get us to the next level. But that's literally what it is. We've never, that's just, I tell people I'm a very inelegant learner. My face turns red, and I'm a freight guy, so occasionally there's an F-bomb in there. But like, it's just not elegant.
Yeah.
But hopefully eventually we figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I got one last question for you. As we've been talking about your business and how you've been leading it over time, where do you see it going? What's next?
So where we ended up is, and this all came through in COVID, is we are on a mission. This is going to sound totally wackadoodle, but it's what we are. So we're on a mission to redeem work, the word, the
Mm.
place, the way. And
Mm.
so we exist solely. I wake up every morning. I haven't worked a second longer than I want in a very, very long time, probably since about 1994, maybe, quite frankly. And I get up without an alarm clock today, to redeem work, the word, the place, the way. And we're looking to make a demonstration of what it looks like to arrange work differently.
Mm.
The word needs to be redeemed because I think it's the most honorable act in the universe. That's all we have. I mean, if you look at it from a physics standpoint, it's all effort. So like, we just got it backwards on that. I mean, I love my kids, but when I'm frustrated and treat them with love, that's work. The love that I have for my kids is a gift. It showed up. Love is a gift. It's awesome, but it's just not an accomplishment. The place, we talked about it a little bit. The place is all jacked up. Our place is all jacked up. We need to get ours fixed. We got to redeem the place that we work, all places that we work. And then the way, the boss, I report up, I'm a spiritual person. The boss rewards those that that arrange the work in the way it's supposed to be done. So that's what we're trying to do. And we're doing it through this thing called Work P2P. And we just keep trying to put a little bigger, more intentional demonstration of what we believe to be true. And yeah, I mean, some days it looks like we're moving in the right directions. Other days we're just really trying not to backslide, but it beats working. Yeah, it definitely beats work. In 1994, when I really started to try to do this, when I got that sort of first supervisory role that I had, um, I figured out that I was going to get paid to practice.
Hmm.
Like, work can be a place where you get paid to practice to be the person that you want to be, away from where you get paid. And that's what's led it. So now there's a group of us that are all committed to that mission. So that's what we're there. That isn't what we get paid to do, but that's why we show up to work. So I don't know if that answers what we're doing, but that's where we're trying to go. Is we're hoping that we can build a society, an ecosystem of folks that see it the way that we see it, or see it part of the way that we see it. And between that group of folks, that we can figure out the right way to get this, get a little closer to redeeming work.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think in the hearts of most people, they want something like that. That's what they want work to be like. And so it's fantastic that that's your mission and that's what you're trying to do.
Yeah. Well, one plug I'll put in there.
Please.
Yeah, because we're certainly not doing it perfectly. I think there's a couple things that we got a decent idea on. Lots of it we're struggling hardcore, but I've seen other people do bits and pieces or big chunks of it really well. And another local guy that people might know, we love singing their song. Cos Tailored is a furniture manufacturer up north of Seattle in Mukilteo, and they also have a consultancy arm called Truth Bit Pull. If you go to that furniture factory, they're competing globally. They compete in a global marketplace, and it looks anything but like a furniture factory, but it is one. It doesn't look like one. And when the state of Washington opened everything up, they had 100% come back
Fantastic.
because he's
That's
redeeming work.
amazing.
Yeah, I mean, and this is
unheard of.
I say this with love in my heart. Like, on other parts of the planet, it is a straight up sweatshop, and that's who he's competing against. And the way that he's arranged it, everyone showed up the first day they could.
Amazing.
Because that's possible if we arrange this in a way, right? And so that's one of the many people that we're trying to, don't be arrogant, copy off the smartest kids class on, right? Like, for sure. So yeah, we're grateful to be part of again, I don't think we're the only people doing it. I think there's a lot of people out there that realize that there's this massive opportunity of leverage, that we've got these people that would happily give a little bit more if we just figured out a better design that was a little bit more complementary, and so instead of so competitive. And I'm not talking socialism. I'm just talking about like maybe bigger design changes all that. But I'm rambling at this point. I appreciate the opportunity, Joel.
No, not a problem. Dan, this has been such a great conversation. I really do appreciate your time. So thank you again for coming on. I'm talking here with Dan Rogers from Work P2P. Dan, I wish you the best, and really looking forward to seeing and hearing about how you continue to grow and do the things that you're doing, and making the great changes in the world of work. So thank you so much.